Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me so much pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of India Habitat Center and Professor Benoy K Behl. Today's talk is the 27th in the monthly series Glimpses of Culture. Professor Behl was deeply affected by the grace and beauty of the Ajanta paintings, which he revealed to the world in their true colors and details in 1991. His subsequent life has been a journey of exploration of the aesthetic philosophy, which led to the blossoming of this greatest of art, an art which is filled with sublime compassion and the love of all of humanity. Professor Behl's book on the Ajanta Caves is published by Thames and Hudson, London, and New York. It is amongst the best-selling books on Indian art history in the world, and a new edition will be coming out in November this year. His recent book on the art of India in two beautiful volumes is already in its third print run. Ladies and gentlemen, Benoy K Behl speaks to us today on sublime grace, the sculptural art of the Gupta period. Thank you, and over to Professor Behl now.
Thank you very much, Sujata Chatterji, for your kind introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Great pleasure to be with you. In the Indian philosophic tradition, the material world around us is considered to be Maya or Mithya, an illusion which we perceive because of the limitations of our senses and sensibilities. The high purpose of life is to lift the veils of the illusion and to be able to see the truth which is beyond, the truth which is inherent, the truth which is within. The Chitra Sutra, the oldest known treatise on art making which is known, states that the purpose of art is to help us on this philosophic path. To help us on this philosophic path to be able to see beyond the material world. Now, that is something which is both extremely difficult and a wondrous exercise. Extremely difficult because how is the art going to show us what is beyond? What does the art have to use in this process of showing us? It is the material world. It is material things which the art brings before us. And at the same time, the purpose is to reveal to us that which is arupa, which is beyond form itself, that which is nirguna, which is without qualities as we know them. A daunting task, one would imagine, a very daunting task. However, as the Indian philosophy of aesthetics understands, the aesthetic experience, the moment when we respond to something truly beautiful in nature or in art, is akin to Brahmanand or the bliss of the final bliss of salvation itself. For in that moment, the veils of illusion are lifted and we are seeing the grace which underlies all that there is. Therefore, that is the aim of the artist. That's the aim of the traditional Indian artist, to reveal that grace. And in this philosophy of aesthetics, it is also understood that each moment that we have of this aesthetic experience leaves a little residue inside us, which makes us just a little more capable of feeling that again, of experiencing that again. And each time it happens, the residue keeps building up, making it easier and easier. What a wonderful thought. What a wonderful thing this is. And this is what the ancient art of India is all about. Understanding the aesthetic experience, peeling away the layers of the material world, showing us the material world, but with the layers of materiality somehow removed to show us that which is beyond. A marvelous exercise, a most wonderful exercise in which the ancient Indian artist has in fact excelled. And how has he done that? He has never attempted to bring before us the photographic reality of the world. Instead, he has gone for the essence which underlies it all. So you see the human being, but always an idealized human being, never photographic reality, never the confusions and the noise and clamor of the material world, but always showing us that which goes beyond all this noise and clamor, which goes beyond the turmoil which surrounds us every day, which goes beyond the cravings, which goes beyond our passions, which goes beyond our desires, to simply show us that which is graceful, that which will evoke that grace within us. And as that grace is awakened within us, one day it will accumulate so much that at that point we would have become the deity we are looking upon. What a marvelous thought. And the artists of the Gupta period, around the 5th century CE, are a beautiful example of this whole wondrous exercise of the Indian artist, in which the participant, in which the viewer in which the viewer is very much a participant. Your response is what makes the art come alive. Therefore, I invite you to share this art and to enjoy, participate in the joy of this experience. My many thanks to India Habitat Center for this yet again one more opportunity to share a chapter of the glorious art of the subcontinent. My many thanks to Doordarshan, who over the years have so well sponsored the making of my films on abstract and deeply researched subjects, very serious subjects. Where in this world do you find a telecaster who, leaving behind the chase for TRPs, sponsors the making of such serious films? My deep thanks are owed to them. And Sushant, I would request you to please run this film. Thank you so much.
In 320 AD, Chandragupta I founded the Gupta Empire. His capital was at Pataliputra in present-day Bihar. He ushered in an age of well-being and prosperity, an age in which all aspects of culture flowered. One of the finest periods of mankind when great thinkers attained noble heights of achievement. The period of Gupta rule, known as a Golden Age, lasted up to the year 467 AD. Kalidasa, the greatest Sanskrit poet and playwright, lived during this period. So did the astronomer and mathematician Aryabhat, the first person to accurately calculate the solar year. Since early times, the philosophic belief was in the oneness of all that there is. The world of separated forms around us was considered to be an illusion. In the search for the truth, the veils of illusion had to be lifted so that we could see beyond. In the 1st century, deities in human form had been created in Indian art to provide a support to minds not prepared to comprehend the formless abstract. These deities were many, all different aspects of the one formless truth.
In India, we have always thought that there are multiple ways to get to the spiritual or the divine, and that divine, the Brahman, that is formless, actually can be worshipped also by symbols of images. So in that sense, deities are seen in their manifest form, in their physical form, as a way to connect to the divine that may be formless. But that is completely understood and accepted as part and parcel of how we look at image making and how we look at deities. Whereas for many, many Hindu gods, it's not like people think that there was a real God that was alive. We understand the mythology of God for something beyond just an everyday. So we don't get so concerned about the realistic notion of a God, but in fact we understand the symbolic value of the deity that gets us to a higher plane.
The human form had to be created, which rose above itself. It was not a human form caught in the web of the material world. It was an embodiment of that which was eternal, that which was still, undisturbed by turmoil and cravings. Meditating upon such a form, devotees awakened the best within themselves. They rose above the pains created by their own desires and confusion.
A kind of perfected and transformed, transfigured human body can suggest to us the profoundest and most important philosophical ideas.
Mathura on the banks of the river Yamuna in North India had been a great center of art since the Shunga period in the 1st and 2nd centuries BC. By the 1st century AD, some of the earliest images of Indic deities were made here out of the local red sandstone. By the 5th century, the figures had become slender, and there was a delicacy of treatment. A look of tranquility had come upon them. The garment was indicated by a series of folds, yet it did not hide the graceful body, which was the manifestation of the ideal state of being. The inward look upon the face perfectly expresses the rising of the spirit above the world of manifest reality.
Those Gupta pieces are so incredibly special, is that they embody the idea of spirituality and sensuousness, which is so unique to Indian art, where it is not simply about spirituality that is negating the body, but it is taking the body and moving to the spiritual dimension, which I think is really quite beautiful.
Mathura had long interacted with Sarnath on the banks of the Ganga. It was here that the Mathura tradition flowered. It was here that the form was created to express that which is the spiritual state of the Buddha, one who has left behind the turbulence of the material world. 3 standing Buddhas, one of AD 474 and 2 of AD 477, bring us the achievement of Sarnath. Behind lowered eyelids, the look is within. The mind is not disturbed by the illusions of the passing world. It is still. It is not the conquest of the world, but the conquest of the mind, which is the theme here. All that there is one, and it is to be found within, in the endless peace of the mind. Such an art is not concerned with outward ornamentation, and the apparel has all but disappeared. Even the folds of the garment are gone. The smooth planes of the body blend effortlessly. A form has been given to bliss itself. It is unmarred by the blemishes and imperfections of ordinary mortals. Inscriptions state that these were made beautiful through the science of chitra or art making. It is around this time that the Chitra Sutra, the oldest known treatise on art, was penned, out of traditions which were ongoing. In Indic art, the emphasis was never on individual problems and their solutions. The best and distilled knowledge of the finest minds was passed down and constantly modified. Canons guided the artist. Individual achievement and works of rare beauty were born out of the immediate experience of the artist, of the visualized reality itself.
When you look at a piece like this, that this is a cult image, an image which really expresses something spiritual, something sacred. And in that sense, I think there's nothing compared with Indian art.
A seated Buddha of this period is depicted preaching the first sermon at Sarnath. He is seated in a yogic posture of meditation, seen in Indic art from the time of the Indus Valley civilization. His hands are in the Dharma Chakra Pravartan Mudra, indicating that he is setting into motion the wheel of Dharma, or the law. The chakra or wheel is also seen below. So are deer, indicating that the setting is in the deer park at Sarnath. On both sides are made rampant leogryphs, symbolizing the regal roar and the authority of the Buddha's message. These became a constant feature in Buddhist art from this period. At Sanchi, new temples and additions were made in the Gupta period. 4 Buddha statues were placed at the entrances of the Great Stupa in the mid-5th century. As in other depictions of this period, the Enlightened One personifies an inner calm, where the noise and confusion of the material world fade away, where the armies of Mara have failed. In the first quarter of the 5th century, 20 rock-cut caves were carved out of the hill at Udaygiri, not very far from Sanchi. These are the earliest surviving Hindu temples. The temple was conceived as a home for the deity. We leave behind the mundane world to enter the peace and dark of the interior for the darshan. Looking upon the deity, who is made to convey the eternal concepts, we awaken the best within us. We are graced by the act of seeing the deity, that is darshan. It is a concept which is central to Indic thought and continues till today. It is only here at Udaygiri that we still see the context in which Hindu deities were created in the Gupta period. Though these are the earliest remains, it is clear that both iconographic and artistic concepts had been clearly formulated already. The most magnificent representation here is of the Narvaraha Avatara of Vishnu, with the body of a man and the head of a boar. In this story, the Lord appeared in the form of a boar to save the earth goddess Bhudevi. All Indic religious myths are meant to operate at several levels. Besides the story of the rescue of the goddess from the waters, it is also the depiction of the saving of mankind from the ocean of ignorance. Majestic power is obvious in the form of the Varaha, who effortlessly lifts the earth goddess. The precariousness of her position emphasizes the drama of the moment. From the Gupta period onwards, the Varaha Avatara becomes one of the most popular themes in sculpture. On the right of the relief, Cave 6 presents an elaborate carved doorway. Dwarapalas, or guardians of the doorway, are made on both sides. Their muscular bodies and diaphanous garments display the early Gupta style. Ganesha, the elephant-headed deity, is made to our left as we approach the door, a feature we will see in Hindu temples to follow. Two representations of Vishnu are made on the facade. The one on the right has personifications of his attributes. The mace symbolizes the power of knowledge, and the chakra, or wheel, stands for the universal mind. The iconography of the Mahishasur Mardani was fully created by the 1st or 2nd century. She is Durga, destroying the demon buffalo or Mahisha. She has 12 arms which indicate her superhuman powers. An Ekmukh Linga, or one-faced linga, is enshrined in Cave 4. The simple treatment of the face and of the locks of hair place it in the early 5th century. The image portrays the unification of the creative energies of the world with the intellect. Halfway up the Udaygiri hill is a Jaina cave. It has a freestanding portico and has the appearance of a typical small Gupta period shrine. At Diogarh, near Jhansi in Uttar Pradesh, stands one of the earliest surviving Hindu temples. It is dedicated to Vishnu and is dated to about AD 500. The temple faces west and has an elaborate doorway. As compared to Udaygiri, the lintels and door jambs here have multiplied. There is a profusion of foliated designs, mithunas or loving couples and guardian figures. On three sides of the temple are niches which depict different avatars of Vishnu. On the south face is made the Anantasayana Vishnu, who reclines upon the serpent Shesha, which means remainder. The Lord's wife Lakshmi massages his feet, personifying the concept of bhakti, in which the devotee gives himself over in adoration of the divine. Below are made the demons Madhu and Ketabha, and the personified weapons of Vishnu, who keep the demons in check. On the north of the temple is the story of Gajendra Moksha. The Gajendra, or elephant, was seized by a serpent, and a tug of war continued between the two for 1,000 years. Finally, the elephant appealed to Vishnu, who saved him. It is the story of the misguided intellect, caught in the web of Maya, or illusion, till it is saved by true knowledge. These deities are reflections of the peace, the joy, the sublime stillness which we can find within us. They are aids to our journey within.
I think that one can see these things in the world around one if one knows where to look. It's a matter of looking, I don't want to use a cliche, but it's a matter of looking with the inner eye as well as with the purely physical eye. That after all, if you hear a beautiful piece of music, it will move one in the same way. It plugs one in, as it were, to this world of the spirit, the world of exaltation.
Large numbers of brick temples were made in the Gupta period. Owing to the fragile nature of the material, almost all of them have been destroyed by the passage of time. The sculptural decoration of these temples was carried out in terracotta. This life-sized Ganga from the Shiva temple at Ahichatra in Uttar Pradesh is a fine example of such sculpture. The sublime forms made in the Gupta period are created out of devotion and a stillness of the mind. The desire or the ambition to create a great work of art is tempered always by the understanding that this too is, after all, a leela, a dynamic play of the world of illusion. It is not just the works of art which are ephemeral, the deities too are but a path towards the truth. They prepare us and bring us a little closer to being able to comprehend the truth, which is finally of the oneness of all that there is. It is beyond form.
What a marvelous journey in search for that which is beyond the world of forms, using the tools available in this world of forms, using forms to somehow help us to reach out and discover that which is beyond form. And the bridge between the two worlds, the aesthetic response, the philosophy of aesthetics, the understanding that there is a grace and peace which is created by this aesthetic response, which lowers, shall we say, the sound levels of the noise and confusion which drown out all that is beautiful and true and gentle. And that is the journey. Marvelous journey. Finally, an immensely difficult journey. But how beautiful a journey it can be, even if one does not ever achieve that full understanding of that which is formless. The journey itself can have been such a journey of grace. Marvelous. I would be very happy to, first of all, my thanks to Sushant for an excellent screening. And if you put questions into the chat box, Sujata here would be able to read out those questions to me, and I would be happy to try to answer them. Thank you so much.
No questions have come as yet. Some comments have come. I thought before reading out the comments, I'll quickly tell you all about our next screening, which would be on Saturday at 6 p.m., but on 4th November. And the name of the film is Roots of an Ancient Art. And this would be about the Indus Valley period and Maurya art. So please mark it in your calendars. We'd love for you all to be with us. Thank you so much. Okay, so there's a comment from Rajendra Kimesra saying thanks, very informative.
Thank you so much, Rajendra. It was my pleasure.
Krishna Burli, real TRP, truth, reality, and perception of human mind. It is just marvelous.
What a kind thought, and what a marvelous use of the term TRP. Thank you so much.
Tarun, how did Buddhist communities defend themselves from physical attacks by their enemies?
It takes us into a very important and beautiful area, which we will be exploring in the coming film also. One of the most amazing things about ancient Indian history and ancient Indian philosophy and the art which is a reflection of it is the fact that since the earliest of times, since the Indus Valley period, 5,000 years ago, it seems that it seems incredible that there was no barracks have been found by archaeologists. Barracks which are considered necessary for keeping army and police. There are no representations of warfare, victories of war or prisoners of war, which are so many in the cultures of all other civilizations, both early and late. So it's quite, and there are other details too, which we will go into. We'll go into it in more detail with the next film, which covers the Indus Valley period. But it is something which has always amazed people that in the ancient period in India, there was genuinely a desire to keep away from warfare. Even the armies were armies which were somewhat armies of grandeur, armies where somebody sat on top of an elephant, which personified, which showed grandeur, but not really for practical fighting purposes like swift horses. In fact, there were many. It was not. It was not very difficult sometimes for intruders to make raids into India because of these reasons. But there was a belief. It reminds me that the gentleman from National Geographic who interviewed me when National Geographic was doing a story about my work. Well, Tom spoke about his wife who was Korean, and she told him, he said, that the Koreans found it difficult to persuade Buddhists to be very good at warfare. Essentially, the belief is not so much in violence. The belief is not so much in the material world. The belief is not so much in acquisition of territories or wealth through violence. The belief is that all this has to be left behind. All this is ephemeral. All this is part of the passing illusion of the material world. What we have to search for is the peace and the joy which can be found within. So truly, this brings us really to the whole aim of life, the whole purpose of life. And somewhere one has to appreciate the great importance of this. In fact, it's so easy to appreciate the great importance of this in the world we are living in today, where the world is being torn apart by more and more violence everywhere. If there was some understanding that there is much which is beyond all this acquisition and destruction, if there is finally only a peace that should be sought, at least there should be some balance in understanding. So truly, Tarun, if what you're pointing out is that there was genuinely a much more of a peaceful understanding of life at that time, then surely you are right. And surely that is something which the whole world can benefit from, and in fact had better benefit from it soon enough. Thank you so much.
Anand, most of the art forms in India are understated. Is my impression correct?
Yes, they are stated in such a way not to shout out at us, but they're stated in such a way as to draw us into them, as to awaken that which is within us. So it is in fact a much quieter, much deeper, very peaceful exchange. Thank you.
Sandy, how wonderful a way to show the meaning of the sculptures in India.
Very kind of you to appreciate that. Thank you.
Ram Prasad Lal, thanks for making wonderful films and keeping us connected.
Thank you. It has been a joy for me. It has given some meaning to my life, and sharing it with you, seeing your response enhances that meaning. Thank you.
Rajeshri Achyutan, it was really amazing. Does the Gandhara art also portray spirituality in the same way?
The Gandhara art is much appreciated, especially in the Western world, because it has norms which are closer to Western and Central Asian art. The art of Gandhara is, in fact, much more shows shows the real world around us and emotions and the confusions of the real world in much more, how shall we say? Should I say real terms or should I not say real terms? Because the spiritual art of India is constantly trying to take us to that which is real, leaving all this behind. So, while the art of Gandhara was taking place in the northwest of India, under the rule of the Kushanas, came from Central Asia, simultaneously at their other capital at Mathura, the more purely spiritual art of India was going on. And finally, it is the art of the Mathura school and other parts of India which continued, and the art of Gandhara faded away. But it is to be noted that the art of Gandhara, for a person who appreciates the qualities of Western art, the art of Gandhara presents much more understandable and admirable images. Thank you very much.
Gorgeous Naran, did Buddhist communities follow non-violence?
First of all, it would be important to understand that in the inscriptions of ancient India and almost all the history of ancient India is known through inscriptions. Now, in these inscriptions, we can see clearly that every single family that we know about from ancient India had in it someone who was worshipping a Hindu deity, somebody who was worshipping a Buddhist deity, or a Jaina deity. So, communities as such of any particular religion, or even the use of the word religion, are much later colonial constructs. These are spiritual, or at least in the ancient period, these were spiritual faiths. They were philosophies, all of them aiming to take us to true knowledge beyond the illusions of the material world. And the deities were personifications of the qualities one wished to imbibe, the qualities one wished to grow within oneself. And one had a choice whether one wished to renounce the world or whether one wished to follow the path of righteousness, uh, follow Vishnu's path, or whether the other deities or Durga, like Durga, to attack the demons of our ignorance with all the vigor and energy which we have at our command and which we can awaken within ourselves. So, we are not really talking about communities, but individuals. And it is so marvelous, actually, that the individual was so important in ancient India. Individuality was so important. It was an individual search. And while I say this, I cannot help but also point out that one thing that has been remarkable about Indian philosophy is how it has been, it has reached and been part of the lives of even the so-called most common people of India. Till a few decades ago, the simplest of Indians, it could be a gardener, it could be a domestic help, it could be anybody, used to speak so philosophically and so intelligently about Maya or Mithya, the illusory nature of the material world, and ethical matters. It was not left to university professors to talk about philosophical things alone. All the people, all the people used to address these issues, talk about these issues, be quite vocal about them. And that was probably the marvel of India. Of course, with the coming of very modern times, all this changes considerably. But even now, pockets survive of, for instance, the Baul singers of Bengal, who are local people living in villages. One would say very simple people. I mean, some people would even say that some people may even say they are uneducated. But actually, what they are singing about, not just singing about, but what they speak about also, in extremely nuanced terms, is the deepest philosophy that there is. They and they sing about it. So the deepest philosophy can be sung about, can be shared with people. Nuances of it can be shared with people, even through singing, remarkable singing. So that is something which I feel that we must learn from these great and ancient traditions to take us into the depth of life itself, to see knowledge in its completeness, and to see knowledge in a balanced way. And most importantly, to see knowledge as a non-violent and creative endeavor. Thank you. I probably got very carried away, but thank you very much.
Marina Jelovsek, thank you for this interesting and informative movie about a great period of history of India.
My pleasure. I'm so glad you liked it.
Is Buddhism against deities or idolatry? Then why do we have so many deities of Buddha?
Yes, Arun. There are many confusions which are created by the colonial constructs. Even the word idolatry is, I don't know really what to say about it. And I remember there was so much confusion in all our school history books because the histories which were taught to us used to speak about Mahayana Buddhism, which began to make images of the Buddha. Whereas the fact is that Theravada Buddhism has even more images of Buddhas than you would find even with the Mahayana Buddhists. So all this has to be cleared up by a good, clear look. For the time being, I could always recommend my own book in 2 volumes on the art of India, which spells out most of the principles behind Indian art, which reflects the philosophy. And always keep in mind that the deities of India, whether they are Buddhist or whether they are Hindu or whether they are Jain, are personifications. They represent concepts and qualities, the finest qualities within us, the wisdom that there is within us, the peace that there is within us, the righteousness which there is within us, the energy which there is within us with which we would address the demons of our ignorance. Such qualities, such graces are personified in the deities. We look upon the deities, we respond to the deities in order to respond with grace and awaken that within us, eventually to become the deity. Such is the beautiful journey. Such is the beautiful philosophy. So idolatry doesn't sound like a term which, it is a term which may have been used by the colonial rulers. But such misunderstandings, after all, should be left behind. Thank you so much, Arun.
Gorish Naran has a comment. Thank you, sir, for explaining the answer to my question and for the informative movie about the history of India.
My pleasure entirely.
And I think that's about it. There are no more questions. Would you like to share with the group that we put up the recordings on YouTube?
Yes, yes. The recordings of these events are put up on YouTube, on my channel, Benoy K Behl. If somebody likes to view it again, they can always find them there. And such a pleasure it is to speak with all of you, to share these beautiful concepts which come down from such long ago times, and still so living and vital as to infuse our lives today. Such a pleasure. Thank you so much.